Welcome back. Your dreams were your ticket out. Welcome back to that same old place that you laughed about.
Seems like all Hollywood can produce are angry woke sequels, reboots, and reimaginings of beloved original material. It's so bad an entire mini-industry of fascinating YouTube channels has cropped up to give us a blow-by-blow of the woke machine chewing through original lore and tearing our culture apart. But since I'm a contrarian at heart, I'd like to talk about that one time a reimagining miraculously worked, and it wasn't woke. I'm talking, of course, about Ronald D. Moore's 2003 reimagining of the 1978 Battlestar Galactica. The original was launched in an effort to capitalize on the success of Star Wars. In fact, they got John Dykstra, who worked on Star Wars, to do the special effects for Galactica. But other than the special effects, it was a poorly written, poorly conceived TV show by the master of poorly conceived and poorly written TV shows, Glenn A. Larson.
And I told Dom, too, because they've moved my desk 4 times already this year, and I used to be over by the window.
Look, I'm sure he was a nice guy, but his shows were terrible. Knight Rider, Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, and who could forget
BJ was a happy-go-lucky trucker who would haul anything for a price.
You are the guy, aren't you? The guy who hauls anything anywhere for $1.50 a mile, no questions asked?
But this time, his cargo was 11 young women escaping from a white slavery gang.
Please help us.
And does he ever?
We got him now.
But roadblocks mean nothing to BJ McKay, an ex-POW and helicopter pilot from Vietnam.
But in Glenn Larson's defense, he was probably laughing all the way to the bank. Also, it was the 1970s. There was no cable, no cell phones, no internets. There were 3 networks, and that was all you had for home entertainment, unless you read books.
That's not fair.
Renfield! Laugh! It's funny because they don't read books anymore, Renfield! You get it? They're all illiterate! It's YouTube! They don't read books! In such an uncompetitive environment, you didn't need to be great or even good, just better than the other 2 networks, and maybe 1 UHF channel. Now, the premise was interesting. Humanity, living in a galaxy far, far away, is attacked by a race of robots called the Cylons. It was an attack so devastating that the last remaining Battlestar, a kind of aircraft carrier in space... Here, let me let Lauren Green tell you he was better at this than I am.
Fleeing from the Cylon tyranny, the last Battlestar, Galactica, leads a ragtag fugitive fleet on a lonely quest. A shining planet known as Earth.
Anyway, behind the scenes, there were probably lots of 1970s drugs, definitely some big 70s hair. Galactica had a happy-go-lucky feel to it, even though the story is about a massive apocalypse and near-total genocide. No one's acting like billions of people have been slaughtered. Oh, sure, they cry for 5 minutes, then they're either yucking it up on disco planets, or they're being all weird and mystical, or looking like they're just glad to have a job. Look, at the risk of dating myself, I loved the show when I was a kid. Loved it. This was like Star Wars, only on TV. But yeah, it's unwatchable today. The scripts were awful, the directing was terrible, pacing was bizarre. World building? What's world building? I take the Cylons, for example.
Why did we make them?
We didn't. Another race did. A race of reptiles called Cylons.
Maybe the Cylons who created these machines could turn them off.
There are no more real Cylons. They died off thousands of yards ago, leaving behind a race of super machines, and we still call them Cylons.
What? The special effects were expensive, so the show was canceled after only 1 season, despite having decent ratings. It was just too expensive. So Glenn Larson went back to the drawing boards and came up with Galactica 1980, which was cheaper, but even more new agey. Lauren Green now looked like Kris Kringle, I think it was in his contract. And there was some kid who looked like he was a British Village of the Damned John Denver with psychic abilities or something.
Well, we send our young back to Earth to be assimilated into a population.
Also, the 2 main characters, Apollo and Starbuck, were gone. No reason why, no explanation in the story. I guess they were just too expensive. So Glenn got these two guys at the Actor Pawn Shop.
I'll go $1,300.
$1,575.
I'll go $1,300.
$1,550.
$1,300.
I can't do $1,300.
You know Rick made a killing on them. So anyway, Galactica has found Earth, which means the show can save money by shooting out on the highways of Los Angeles. And before you know it, the whole thing turns into a weird Starsky and Hutch or Chips, only with flying motorcycles, environmental crime fighting.
Troy? Unbelievable. What is it? Murder.
You wouldn't happen to be one of them environmentalists, would you?
Sounds like you have something against environmentalists.
Galactica 1980 didn't last long, and it was yanked faster than... Okay, I've written myself into it. Renfield, can you think of anything that got yanked faster? I can't. Nothing got yanked faster, not even William Henry Harrison. Paul Rubens? Ah, yes, that works. First he yanked himself, and then he got yanked. I'll find you some bugs to eat tomorrow, Renfield. You will eat the bugs, Renfield! Anyway, fast forward to 2003, and the Sci-Fi Channel greenlights a new BSG, and it looked like it was going to be pretty cool. But then the first few episodes aired, and there was a lot of wailing and gnashing of teeth from fans of the original, especially in regards to the casting of Starbuck, which went from being played by Dirk Benedict to someone Dirk Benedict might play. You know, it's back in the 70s. Dirk Benedict was so upset that he wrote a scathing Dirk Benedict op-ed for Breitbart.com about the gender swapping of Starbuck. 40 years of feminism have taken their toll. The war against masculinity has been won. Reimagining, they call it. Unimagining is more accurate. A television show based on hope, spiritual faith, and family is unimagined and regurgitated as a show of despair, sexual violence, and family dysfunction. A show in which the Cylons are justified in their desire to destroy our civilization. Let us not say who are the good guys and who are the bad. That kind of simplistic thinking went out with Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan and Katharine Hepburn and John Wayne and, well, the original Battlestar Galactica. In the bleak and miserable reimagined world of Battlestar Galactica, things are never that simple. Maybe the Cylons are not evil and alien, but in fact enlightened and evolved. Maybe it's they who deserve to live, and Adama and his human ilk who deserve to die. And what a way to go! For the reimagined Cylons are not mechanical robots void of soul, of sexuality, but rather humanoid, 6-foot-tall former lingerie models who fuck you to death!
Woo!
He goes on for a bit more. It's a wonderful rant, and I'm a sucker for rants. I love them. But in hindsight, this rant was totally, completely, and utterly wrong, which may explain why Dirk Benedict took it down from his own website and it's no longer on Breitbart.com. I recommend you read the whole thing, though, if you can find it. It's great. And to be fair to Dirk Benedict, he was a bit too close to the subject to be objective. It maybe still is. But as this photo shows, the parties involved may have reached some kind of détente. Starbuck ended up having coffee with the new Starbuck at a Starbucks. The point I'm making is his wonderful rant works, but only if you point it at the latest and greatest woke masterpieces like that Ghostbusters thing.
Let's go. Let's go. Oh. Did you want to? Sorry. I'll let you.
Or the very sad Mad Max sequel Fury Road, or the more recent Velma.
In this day and age, you can't speculate about someone's sexuality unless they're famous or Peppermint Patty.
Rings of Power, She-Hulk, Star Wars, on and on, etc. Those reimaginings, sequels, reboots are intended to be insulting, and it can all be traced to woke ideology and class bigotry. Anyone outside of the woke tribe, really. BSG 2003 was made before woke was even a thing, so none of that is there. I don't think Moore and team turned Starbuck into a woman specifically to piss off conservatives like Dirk Benedict or original BSG fans. Moore did say he thought it would stir up some controversy, but in 2003 that word meant something different than today. Today they call it fan bait, and I'll put a link in the description to Dr. Thalasiren's Twitter account, who made the term popular and gives the authoritative definition of it. I don't think it's a real doctor, but who knows. Go read it yourself, because I don't have time to read all those tweets to you. And anyway, as opposed to fan bait, I call it hate bait. It sounds better, is more descriptive, and it's awesome, and therefore you should like and subscribe and share my videos because I am awesome, and if you do not, I will destroy you! I will destroy you all! I swear it! He wasn't making woke, conservative hate bait. And it's a good thing he didn't go the female Ghostbusters route, because time has shown that's a terrible marketing strategy, and really only good to get your liberal California investors to forgive you for losing all their money. More woke. We need more woke. If it didn't work, it means it needs more woke. The answer is always more woke. More woke. More woke. More woke. For the most part, Moore's female Starbuck was written as a plausible female fighter pilot with fascinating psychological struggles. Yes, there were the occasional things that strained credulity, like this boxing match. Sorry, but she'd be on the mat and down for the count in no time, if not in the hospital.
Hey, cookies! Say, I think our neighbor might like one too. Yeah, well.
Here you go.
Thank you. How's the lawn?
But that entire episode was metaphorical. Trapped family members fighting trapped family members. Not necessarily meant to be a realistic depiction of boxing and male upper body strength versus female, so
I'll allow it.
I've also seen complaints online from Twitter randos about the men and women in a military setting sharing bathroom facilities. Gender-neutral bathrooms is always a hoot, and nearly always ideological in nature, but in this case I saw it more like an archaeological depiction of an alien culture in a galaxy far, far away, as opposed to an effort to proselytize our culture. So
I'll allow it.
But back to the Starbuck character. It was a deeply artistic portrayal transcending beyond just a happy-go-lucky female fighter pilot into a creature of mystery who may or may not have literally died and then been resurrected midway through the story into an unknowing agent of God, a creature to lead mankind to its final death.
You are the harbinger of death, Gareth Thrace. You will lead them all to their end.
A damned tough thing to ask a young Katee Sackhoff to pull off, but she did it. Which brings me to the second thing that I think Dirk Benedict got wrong in his scathing Dirk Benedict op-ed, which is his complaint that the reimagined BSG was a bleak and miserable world. In both Battlestars, the death of billions of people is the genesis for the entire story. A massive genocide.
What have I done? I don't want to die.
Get down.
Your entire species experiencing a genocide that brings you from billions of people down to 50,000 should be enough to bum you out a little bit. Many of you are probably too young to know how it felt right after 9/11. So many dead, empty skies, empty roads, anger, sadness, loss, but mostly there was dread.
Folks, we are evacuating this part of Manhattan. Get out of...
That feeling was all over this show's sensibilities.
CIC to commanding officer.
Go ahead. I'm sorry to disturb you, sir, but we have a priority 1 alert message from Fleet Headquarters. It was transmitted in the clear.
In the clear. What does it say?
Attention all colonial units. Cylon attack underway. This is no drill.
I'll be right there.
Combat. Understood. Condition 1 is set. All decks report ready for action, sir.
Very well.
This is a joke. The fleet's playing a joke on you. It's a retirement prank. Come on.
I don't think so. This is the commander. Moments ago, this ship received word of a Cylon attack against our home worlds is underway. We do not know the size or the disposition or the strength of the enemy forces, but all indications point to a massive assault against colonial defenses. How, why, doesn't really matter now. What does matter is that as of this moment, we are at war.
Now, a lot of people complained about the ending of Moore's BSG with its talk of God and angels and a flash jump of 150,000 years to the world of today. But I think that if you look at the whole, you'll see that these elements were embedded throughout, even from the very first episode.
I'm an angel of God sent here to protect you, to guide you, to love you.
To what end?
To the end of the human race.
The structure and worldview incorporated gods and angels and religion, but many people refused to see it, and so were shocked and angered at the ending. In fact, I seem to notice that atheists and the woke seemed especially irritated. What Moore and his team made was something that commented on the times, but was not trapped in its time. It was timeless. 1978, on the other hand, was definitely trapped in its time. Disco, silliness, Club 21, its vision far outstripped its capabilities, turning talk of gods and man and mystery into silly banality. Now, when you're adapting an original work, usually you want to give the source material respect, sometimes even reverence. Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Star Trek, and if you don't mind me tooting my own horn, Flatland.
Cue the triumphant return!
But BSG 1978? Can anyone really say that BSG 1978 deserved the kind of respect J.R.R. Tolkien does? Maybe some nostalgia, maybe some respect for pioneering. But let's face it, BSG wasn't War and Peace, or The Lord of the Rings, or even, it was like Spock's brain.
Brain and brain! What is brain?
And I suspect Ronald Moore regarded BSG in the same way Hitchcock looked at those novels he adapted into films, like Vertigo, Psycho, and so on, as something that could be molded. As Hitchcock told Francois Truffaut, he didn't pick novels that were great works of art to adapt into films. If they were great works of art, then they had already found their perfect form as a novel, which is why he wouldn't adapt War and Peace into a film. It's in its perfect form already as a novel, and trying to make a faithful adaptation would be an exercise in futility. Instead, what Hitchcock did was pick flawed works that could be developed into something great in the cinematic medium. You take what's good and you leave the rest behind. That doesn't mean you hate the original when you reimagine, like the makers of The Rings of Power, She-Hulk, The Witcher, and so many others today so obviously do and even admit to. But it does mean you put together the best work you can with a clear understanding of the flaws in the original. It's not personal, it's strictly business, or in this case, it's strictly art. And I'd argue that's what Moore did. It wasn't hate, it wasn't personal, nor was it political. It was strictly art. Sure, BSG had its clunky episodes, missteps, and mistakes. But even so, it was an incredible achievement, with a labyrinthian structure and amazing acting. And in the end, Dirk Benedict's rant was 100% right, just directed at the wrong target and decade. Flash forward to today. Things have come full circle. It was just recently announced that there's going to be a new Battlestar Galactica show.
It did feel like a little bit of a punch to the gut, because you kind of went, oh, this is serious. And he's going to do a good rendition of it, whatever. And we're not involved. So it did come.
All of this has happened before, and all of it will happen again. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. I'm trying to get monetized. I need you people to share my stuff. You people need to get off your ass! Film Lab was recorded in front of a live studio audience.